very high. Those are some of the achievements which I can highlight in the sector. And the challenges is the system stability, because we have a lot of intermittent and everyone is campaigning for solar and wind, and we are trying to look at how to address that. We have, again, about waste management. Somebody was talking about the waste management. Like, we encourage people to install solar, but we know after a while, there's a lot of components of solar which will have actually to dispose, like the batteries. There are quite a number of components which will have to be replaced after every 5 years or 10 years. So we really have to address that challenge, because otherwise we may go into those technologies and we end up with another elephant in the room, difficult to address. Another challenge is low demand growth, which is as a result of delayed projects. Quite a number of projects under Vision 2030 have not come on board. And this has made us to end up with excess power. You've heard of people talking of excess power in the system, but it is excess because the purpose why they were brought in has not been achieved, because the consumers, which is industries which were to come on board, have not come on board. And now it has left us with some excess, and we have to pay for that. And that's one of the factors which drive electricity costs higher. And then the opportunities which exist are that if we work together, both the public and private, we are able to go 100% clean and green, because there are a lot of opportunities. We have resources, what remains only to develop. Then we have a lot of available renewable energy resources for even private sector investments. And we normally encourage private sector to come on board so that we can work on this together. And then there is also investments in storage, such as pump storage, hydropower, and so on and so forth. And then there's also opportunity for collaboration between the researchers and the developers. I think there's a missing gap which we really need to exploit, where we can work with the research institutions, the training institutions like KSG, to actually have a consolidated effort in actually developing these technologies and the initiatives to try and address this. One thing which I can say KenGen does is to organize what we call G2G technical seminars. There's even one which we actually held in KSG. This is to encourage people to come up with innovative ideas of how we can improve our processes and do things differently, to be able to move from G2G stands for good to great. Yes, we are doing good things, but we want to do great things as a country. So that's an opportunity for us to work together. So in conclusion, I may just say there's a strong linkage between energy and industrial development. Then the stable and affordable electricity supply actually is critical for faster industrial growth. And then the renewable energy is critical for sustainable development as envisaged in Vision 2030 and achievement of the long-term strategy for climate change towards zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And lastly, I may say that there is existing a lot of opportunities for private and public institutions in the area of research and development in the energy sector. That's what I had to share. And maybe I open now the floor for discussions, so that, and remember I said I'm also ready to learn from the participants. You can tell us, you guys are doing this, why don't you try it this way? And now the rest can also, if some questions, I can also answer those questions. And for my answers, we may discuss. It's actually, everyone should feel free to discuss so that we can actually get a lot of take home from this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chen, for that very elaborative presentation about your background information and what you do. And this session, we'd like to open this session to questions. Of course, directed to Willis. Any questions on that? Let me see if we have something on the comment section. Okay, I open the floor to questions. Maybe the first question to Mr. Ocheng. We have recently we've had, for instance, REREC. We've had REREC doing a lot of renewable, renewable energy deployment, especially in the rural areas, given that there are challenges of power, especially to rural areas that mainly have dispersed settlement patterns, for instance. And of course, in most instances, also these areas we have challenges of the citizens or the populations, they are not being able to afford the cost of electricity transmission to their respective settlements. And we have seen a project with the REREC. I think I have seen somewhere on their website a project for Garissa power plant. I don't know if you know much about it. And at what model, what is the model of this project? If you might be having an idea, is it at an individual level in terms of a private installment, or is it for a communal level? Because I can relate it so much to something I learned about from Denmark about an island called Samsu Island, which has managed to completely go green using various energy mix. And given that that island is very small in population, so it's a model that I kind of felt like we could replicate in our setup in the rural areas where people can do a village level solar system. So I would like to know what is the arrangement in terms of the model of social organization.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, REREC has got a responsibility to actually ensure there's a lot of access of electricity to the rural areas. And remember, there are some areas where the national grid has not reached those areas. So what happens, the REREC has been working in actually installing those isolated generation, especially, I know the majority are solar, which they do some in schools. And I know they are also spearheading the connectivity in the rural areas where they are trying to provide the transformers, and this also now targeting the schools so that the people around those schools can benefit. And some have been also financed through what we call the last mile. There are also other projects which are being done now by the private sector, that's the mini grids, but they're being done in such a way that later they'll be able to be connected to the main grid, because we have realized that if we have to wait to take the main electricity grid to the rural to everywhere, it may take time, and it may also take a while for Kenya as a country to achieve what is called the universal access to electricity. So what happens with the REREC is always any region which feels they may require some assistance is always to liaise with the REREC office. And I think the REREC offices are spread actually all over the country. And the REREC should always be able to advise whether, what I'm not sure that has been implemented is to have a distributed system, maybe powered by solar, because I know this actually go to maybe individual institutions and mostly public institutions. If it is maybe a private homestead, to one, maybe get how to do the installation for solar, but two, can talk to REREC electricity supply system. They can be advised to come together and to see whether they are able to afford a transformer which will be able to supply them. And that is in case they are not closer to any public institution, because the government is using public institutions to try and reach the communities around those institutions. Yes, you have talked about an island. I know now REREC has installed, in collaboration with Kenya Power, I think there are some islands which have been covered, which are running on solar. But what happens is, like, initially they were running on thermal plants. which now REC and Kenya Power are working together to see how these thermal plants can be eliminated so that we use actually the renewable energy resources in those places. So I think that's how the sector is trying to address that. I don't know how, maybe I've addressed the issues the questions you are asking, and to give guidance on how to go about it.
Mr. Chair, we'll continue to receive more questions. There's some hand up. Madam Patricia Kinney, please.
Yes, thank you, Willis, for the insights on what the energy sector is doing. And you've mentioned it in your presentation, the concerns of the energy from waste plant. And I had mentioned it earlier in the morning session. How are we harmonizing initiatives in circular and green growth in the country if solid waste management in terms of in the health sector, in the environment sector, incineration is usually like the second last option because it's a disincentive for product design, it's a disincentive to recover recyclables, to reuse items. And yeah, so how are we really addressing circular economy in unison if we go that direction? And also the concerns of the emissions if we don't adhere to the detail of what is required to mitigate those emissions when the waste is being incinerated, because there could be other options in terms of biogas plant, which can also generate energy, because you can still get the leachate that can be used for fertilizer. It can have more co-benefits as opposed to the general waste burning of plastics and other items that we are discouraging. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, if you look at our plans and how we are trying to bring in the plans, now there are quite a number of technical factors which are normally going into consideration. Yes, we have like a good example is there's a project in Naivasha, which is a biomass plant. It's a 2 megawatt, which normally uses now the flour stock and all that stuff to do their biomass generation. There's one around Marigat, which was trying to use this plant called Madenge, though it ran into technical problems. And therefore, we normally try to encourage a lot of studies before you actually get the best option. So we encourage the feasibility studies to inform of what is the way forward in managing that waste. For example, the case of Nairobi, KenGen did a study in 2010. That's before the new constitution. During that time, Nairobi was still under Nairobi County Council. And when we did a study, we found out that this project as KenGen, we may not have any economic or financial benefits, but it may just be used as a tool to manage the waste. And in that study, it detailed on how the waste were going to be handled right from the source until the collection point, and then how it was to be separated and how it was to be treated until actually it could go to electricity level. Right now, because waste is still another challenge, it's still a challenge in Nairobi City up to now, then we go to see how we can ensure that that waste is used to generate electricity and to create value for it, because one of the things which can be done is to create value for that waste, so that instead of people scattering it all over, it could be collected, because if you collect it and take it somewhere, you may get some few coins, and now instead of leaving it to litter anywhere. But if you do that, you will actually you'll be contributing to cleaning of the environment. I remember there's a time we went to Germany just for benchmarking, and we realized that, like Germany, there's a waste to energy plant which they have established, and they ended up even running a sort of waste, so they had to plan on how to import waste from even other neighboring countries. And that has informed the study, and if maybe you want the detailed study, I think it's available, and maybe I can only check on how free are we to share it. If not, then maybe we can try to see how to get for you the specific information. But a thorough study has been done by the consultant. And right now we are looking at how to just to handle the contamination of groundwater so that as it is implemented, now we don't also contaminate the groundwater, and we also don't contaminate the surface water, and also the pollution. We also try to address that to comply with all the government regulations which have been put in place. So we are consulting also other institutions, though we are heading with the Nairobi County government, but we are in constant consultation with NEMA. We are consulting with the Water Resources Authority, also the Ministry of Environment, to ensure that nothing is left to chance. We are also consulting with the local community to ensure that we comply and also address the issue of economic and financial analysis, because we don't want to bring a plant which is going to be expensive. Kenyans don't want expensive electricity. And this plant capacity in 2010, it was being estimated at 30 megawatts. Right now, the consultant has upgraded it to 45 megawatts. I don't know, maybe the waste generation has gone up. And the target was also to look at the satellite towns which are surrounding Nairobi. The satellite towns which together with Nairobi city form what we call Nairobi metropolis, actually were being considered. And actually that's how it is being packaged, not purely for maybe energy business, because I may say maybe from the Kenyan side, we don't have experience in handling waste. So we still want to Nairobi to organize how this waste can be collected, can be segregated, and how it can be used to handle it in a way that it ensures Nairobians to have clean environment. I don't know whether addressing your question, but the details actually we can discuss and get how you can get the technical details. I may not have them offered, but they are available.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, again for that very elaborative answer. Maybe also just a follow-up question to it. At least, of course, I did not see this in Kenya, but at least where we have seen maybe a central, like what you're talking about, waste management, let's say at the county level, that means that the central energy plant. What I learned from where this has been implemented is that this requires, of course, apart from proper waste management, there's a chain of things that need to be put in place, including infrastructural development, even in terms of how to distribute that energy. For instance, where I saw this in Denmark, it was about generating heat energy from the waste. Of course, that required infrastructural development for them to be able to distribute that. So my question is, are we ready for this, especially, let's say taking Nairobi as a pilot? Are we ready for this? Are these infrastructure in place, or can we still just adopt for the infrastructure that we have for transmission for the national grid to distribute the same? Assuming, let's say, even if we came up with a plant for biogas, for instance. Are we ready? Are we ready for that?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we are ready for that. And all those have been looked at in the study. Also, all the infrastructure, even the collection, where will be the collection points, how do we deliver it to where it is required, how do we evacuate this power, the transmission infrastructure have been looked at, and if there's any improvement which is required to be done at even the substations and all that stuff, all those have been proposed in the feasibility study which we have just completed. And this is now at a high level of discussion. Actually, the study is complete with even the details, the costing of that infrastructure, even up to the cost of electricity per kilowatt hour. And right now, I know by last week, we were having a discussion with our CS before now it goes to the office of the president to see how it can be implemented. And we are not doing this alone. We are doing together with the Nairobi County government. I don't know whether there's anybody from Nairobi County government with us who can attest to that and has been actually part of that project. So we are ready. That's the answer I can give in summary.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the members? Any questions from the members? Okay, if members don't have any questions yet, I still have more questions for you, Mr. Chen.
Yes,
now,
go ahead, please.
Yes, when we looked at the structure that you gave us regarding the players and the actors in the energy generation and distribution, we saw the IPPs. That would be, there was something on IPPs. Does that mean private investors are free to even come up with their own generation installation, or what does that mean?
Yes, you are very correct. It allows also the IPPs, that's the independent power producers. We really encourage them to come on board to invest in the power sector. So they are allowed to do their studies, and now when they bring it when they have completed the feasibility study and ready to negotiate for power purchase agreement. But before they reach the power purchase agreement, once they have their proposal, they just submit it to the Ministry of Energy, which will bring it to us. There's what we are calling the Least Cost Power Development Planning Team, which soon is going to be transformed to what we call the INEP. INEP actually stands for the INEP stands for National. Okay, I'm just trying. Okay, the INEP actually is going to take over. It's not, the INEP stands for Integrated National Energy Planning, and this will now incorporate even the counties. We want it later. If you are a private investor, you don't come all the way to Nairobi, but you can now go to the next county and you discuss with the it's called what, the county executive in charge of energy, and they can now put those together, and as a county they can bring that to the national team, and then this can be considered together along others. So as private investors, they are encouraged, and that's why I really encourage the private investors to take part in this. And if they are not able to do it alone, you can also partner with these public institutions, because there's a provision for private-public partnership. And then the project can be realized. You can come to KenGen, we can see how to work together. You can go to REREC, you can see how to work together actually to increase the energy supply in the system. So yes, private sectors are encouraged. And examples of private sector is also like, you see, like Turkana is purely a private producer, which is producing now 310 megawatts. There's one which I cited for wind, also called Kipeto, which is doing 90 megawatts, also is a private one. There is a solar plant in Eldoret called Eldosol, which is also 40 megawatts, also private. So you can see there's a lot of private people coming on board. And yes, welcome, and let's work on development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Willis, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Willis, for that insightful presentation. Maybe I think it skipped my mind. What did you say you're doing in terms of ensuring equitable distribution of energy, considering that we still have areas which don't have access to electricity? And now that we are also going green, what are we going to put in place to ensure that everyone gets to benefit from that? I know we still have something that we are doing to ensure that households are able to access energy, but what are you as a KenGen doing to ensure that everyone has access to energy? So can you hear me, Mr. Willis?
Yes, you are low. I've struggled to hear you, but I hope.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. So I think the question is about the universal access to energy, and what maybe KenGen about that. And that one is a sector where all the teams work together. When it comes to connectivity, because KenGen's role is only to generate and not to distribute. Once we generate, we transmit it through KETRACO transmission lines. Those are high voltage lines. From there, KETRACO now also delivers back to Kenya Power, now at low voltage distribution lines to distribute to the consumers. Now we have another sister company now called REREC, who now are supposed to spearhead the access of electricity to rural areas. Though we have a challenge of the settlement patterns in Kenya, so it makes even attainment of 100%, what we are calling universal access, become sometimes a mirage because we have communities who keep on moving from one place to the other. The ones who are there, which was targeting schools, and believing that this population going to these schools are from now some households. And this project was mainly to install transformers in each and every public school to ensure that now the communities around there can access that. And it is purely now under REREC and Kenya Power who actually does this mandate, not Kenyan. And the process is just the way I had explained before. If maybe you need to be connected, if you are far from the national grid, too bad. But there are also plans to extend or to expand our transmission and distribution system to ensure we reach as many people as possible. But we normally say that there are some people who may be able to afford even a transformer and even a transmission line. So if you can come together and say you want just to be assisted technically, you can still have a discussion with either Kenya Power or REREC, and that can be seen to be done. So it's an effort of maybe the people, the consumers who want to be connected, and also the government agencies which are charged with the connectivity. I don't know whether I'm answering that. So that's actually the process, how it is. But to achieve 100% technically right now, okay, maybe in future, and maybe if the government also changes the policy. There's once I was in China, and what they do there, people live in villages. Everyone is actually mobilized to stay within a village where they supply water, electricity, and they leave their farms for agricultural production. Maybe if we reach at that level where now we are able to put everyone together, put them as an eco-village, supply them with water, electricity, then we'll be able to achieve 100%. But initially, we are actually trying to deal with those who have got permanent settlements. Before now, we see how we can actually address the communities who keep on moving from one place to the other. I don't know whether I've answered that. If it's a component I've left out, please feel free, because I also lost you because the volume was too low. Thank you.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have, Mr. Willis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you still have more questions? Maybe also just a follow-up to the question that I asked previously. So what would be an incentive for me as a private investor? Like, what is the arrangement in terms of how do I benefit from this investment if I have to channel this electricity again to the national grid? Or is there an instance where I don't necessarily have to? I have something called mini grids. Are there instances where you can just use a localized grid instead of channeling the electricity to mini grid? And also, when I have excess electricity as an investor, if I channel it to the national grid, then how am I going to benefit from it? How much am I going to earn from it?
Okay, thank you very much. There is what we used to call feed-in tariff. The feed-in tariff was brought to ensure that any investor who comes to invest has to at least gain from the investment, as they help to make Kenyans have access to electricity. So once you do your study, you will have this will actually show us the costs involved, the costs you will incur. You will also take a loan, you will be paying interest. All these are calculated so that you are given a tariff. These tariffs are normally, if you go to the EPRA website, there are always tariffs for this, for the private sector, especially for the small power plants, be it hydro, and they tell you this is the tariff they are giving for that hydro. Calculations have been made that if you are given that tariff and you develop a hydro power plant, you will be able to get money or returns on your investment. If you do wind, you do solar, you do biomass, all these are actually well indicated there. But of late, this has been revised because there are some people who used to come, apply, get the license, but it was for speculation. They now want to go look for somebody to come and buy that, and they make some money without working for it. And when they could fail, they could leave us in problems where now we have a deficit. So right now, the projects which are being given priority in the system, but because they are not very intermittent, is the small hydropower plants and biomass. For wind and solar, which are intermittent, and also now even geothermal, there is what the government now is working on called we want to work on what is called energy auctions, where the government will declare that this is the deficit we have, and we want this amount of energy by this year, So if you have one which you are prepared, you just bid. And once you bid, and then now we have gotten enough to actually to supply the deficit, then we'll be able to give you a go ahead and give you a power purchase agreement with Kenya Power. This works as a guarantee because now this power purchase agreement ensures that you get your return on investment and you don't lose a single cent on your investment. And allow me just to say this, when actually we bring these power plants on board, because of that PPA arrangement, if this power is not consumed, it is the consumers who will still pay for it because the investor is guaranteed of his investment. And that's how the private sector is normally actually motivated, because you are sure that if I put my investment here, I'll get my money. But now if the demand doesn't grow, that's when the power cost goes up, because we have even to pay for idle power in the system. And that's why we are changing that mode of now bringing the power from actually what we are calling the feed-in tariff to energy auctions, to try that we just address the gaps to maintain costs as low as possible. But again, on industrialization, because industrialization, though I've not been asked any question on industrialization, they hold key to bringing down our power, our electricity costs. Because if we can get heavy consumers, it means the very small proportion is going to remain as excess in the system. And if you have a small proportion just remaining in the system, and that's what every consumer pays for, it will be smaller compared to what people are consuming, as opposed to the situation we are in right now. So we also, as we encourage the investors in the electricity sector, we also encourage the consumers. We really need this demand to grow. And because this demand is not growing as fast as we had envisaged, that's why you hear that Kenya now is even drilling geothermal for Ethiopia. Now we are moving even to Djibouti, because we feel now this ours is not growing as fast as it should, and we have this capability, and that's where we are moving outside, and we don't want to suffocate the consumers with excess electricity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Any advice to Mr. Ochieng? Because I understand he also came here for us to learn from us as well.
Yes, any take home for me, please. Is like, yes, we are doing planning, but you need to consider this and that. Please feel free. I'll be ready to take that and see how we can improve our planning process.
Hello. Okay, maybe I'll go again. Have there been possibilities, because now we have REREC in place, have there been possibilities of then adventuring in the counties that are endowed with energy, like solar energy rather, to be able to tap into that to improve especially connectivity in these counties that have been lagging behind? Most of them are in the northern part, have been lagging behind in terms of development and of course in terms of electricity connection. And yeah, is there such an arrangement? And then is there also a possibility of having a village level, maybe solar energy system? If they decide that they want to form their communal level, they want to form their community to enhance penetration of electricity and energy, to do solar system with the resource that we have.
Yes, we want to push that to the counties level, whereby the people now within the local areas can even say, yes, this area has not been reached by the transmission network. Can we have our own mini grid? And once you can have a proposal like that, and then it goes to the CEC for the county, he will be able to forward that to the national government, whereby you will be able to be assisted following the laid down grid codes, so that the grid which will be put in place, it can serve that area with maybe solar or maybe a hybrid system of solar and wind. And when now the national grid reaches that area, it is easier just to connect into your system without replacing it. And that will actually help us now to reach or access many areas as possible. So yes, it is possible, but right now you can discuss with the REREC, because the county governments have not been brought on board. There's a team who is working on the implementation of the Energy Act 2019, which will now give instructions to counties how they come on board, and how now they can handle the projects within their localities, including even up to the ward level. But as it is right now, if there's any which is ready, you can discuss with the REREC, and I'm sure they'll be in a position to assist you to package it for actually even for support to realize that access to electricity.
Thank you. One more question. In terms of partnership with our neighboring countries, we also learned from elsewhere outside there that in the event that there is excess production of energy, this particular island that I spoke about, in the event that there is excess production of energy, there's usually a possibility of transferring that energy to a neighboring country for the sake of not wasting it. And of course, in the event that they also have the same, they can always also benefit from it. Do we also have such an arrangement?
Yes, that arrangement, it is in the Act, and there's a committee who is working on the regulations. And that's why we talk of, once you want to do even a mini grid, you need to comply to some grid code so that they're uniform, so they can just be plugged in once the national grid reaches there. There is what we are calling net metering, that even in your house, when you put a solar module, you will be able also to supply electricity to Kenya Power. So that, let's say you have solar, it is excess, you cannot use all of it. The excess, the law allows you to put it into the grid, and Kenya Power is to pay for that. But now what is being worked on is the regulations. I know it's working in other countries, whereby now what you generate in your house, excess, now you can put to the grid. It can go to serve other purposes, like even the industrial areas where now that excess electricity can be taken. But regulations are being worked on that, and I know very soon everything will be rolled out, and things will fall in place, and all these are going to be considered. So it is there in the law. It's just being, the regulations are waiting for to implement it.
I don't know if we have any more questions. Maybe your final remark to, as Mr. Kendio did, your final remark, what would you like to leave us with?
Yes, my final remark is that please feel free to maybe to get into contact with me. There are a lot of opportunities in the energy sector which we can explore, and we can partner together to work on that. So please feel free to walk into any government institution, and they'll be able, even if you walk into a wrong one, they'll always be able to direct you to the right one, which can guide you actually appropriately. And let's harness these renewables in our country to be able to at least to make sure we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. And this in turn will make us have a and I really appreciate them, and that's why when I was invited to participate here, I said I cannot miss, because it is good always to give back to what we call giving back to the community. It's good to share that information, which is a combination of other trainings and what I've also gained from KC. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you very much and wish you all the best, Mr. Chen, in your endeavors. I think I'll now get back to Eunice Roberti to continue.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Willis, and thank you very much, Madam Diana. And thank you to all participants for having been patient this far. So this opportunity, we'd like to make it open in case we have any other questions that we did not manage to ask, whether regarding the first presentation or even in these presentations. We are free to discuss and we are free to maybe comment on something. Do we have anyone who would like to ask a question? Even with regards to the green growth and circular economy presentation that Mr. Kimbuyo had done. Anyone? Since there is none, so I think there was something that I remember during Mr. Kenduyo's presentation, there was a comment from was it? Yeah, from Madam Merigoretti.
Eunice is like, I'm not getting any sound from my side. Eunice, I've heard you mention my name. Hello? Eunice, I'm not, you are muted. Hello? I can't hear.
Hello?
Yes,
can you
now,
hear me?
yes, now I can.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
I was saying you at some point in the chat you were thanking Mr. Kenduyo for acknowledging the work that you're doing at the university. Would you like to share more about what you are doing on any green initiatives you have?
No. I just thanked him for acknowledging the work the university is doing. I'm from a different department, not from the nuclear department. But I would just say that we need to look at creating of spaces which again create harmful spaces. Like what I've said, you invest in something which again affects, like now, if it was coal mining in Kitui, the dirt will bring the pollution it will bring to the environment. And if it is the, like again, addressing the issue in the northern Kenya where the chemicals were buried and now they can't access water from the ground, from the underground. So these are the things as in the green growth, you need to address so that at least all of us enjoy the environment which God gave us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And
just again to add, you talked of coming up with banning the usage of firewood, but if there is any innovation to come up with, you should remember women. You know, if the cost is exorbitant and most women are poor, we are the world most poor, we might not afford the technology, even if it is safe for our usage. So when you are doing innovation, think about the rural woman, that woman who does not earn or earn less than $1 a day. Again, for the KenGen presenter, they should also think of the rural woman in terms of energy, in terms of the cost of energy, because I would like to use electricity, but the cost of it is so exorbitant that we cannot as women in the rural areas. So those are some of the things they need to consider: pricing and who is the consumer and all that. So that is something we need to look at. And when they're also planning, let them have women in the planning, because like firewood, we are the consumers. We are the ones producing food on the table, putting food on the table. And that is the only source we can access. Even paraffin we can, but not very many can afford. So all this affects the lives of a woman, affects the life, and we are the majority again in the country. And whenever there is costing, none of us is taken into consideration. So those are some of the things they need to do in their planning and also in the innovation of things they're coming up with. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mary, because of that. I'm sure they have taken note of that, mainstreaming gender, even in their planning. So could we have maybe a parting shot from Madam then?
Okay, asante sana, Madam Mulveti. My parting shot would be that I really enjoyed this interactive session with people of great mind, people that I know are well traveled and are involved in decision making in one way or another in Kenya. And I'd like to assure you that I think now I will just nitapigia Deve nuclear power plant, power program. I'd just like to assure you that we are doing what we are doing with the best interest of the country, and we will always look for any forum that we need to get ideas and concerns. And I already told Madam Webeti to share my email in the platform, and you can always reach out to me for any clarification that you need. I can assure you that I will get back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Diana. Do we have someone else who would like to give their comment as we wind up? If there is none, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank every one of us. I can see we are still about 27 of patient to the end. We'd like to take this opportunity because of thank you for making this event a success. And we hope that you have all learned a lot from each other and even learned a lot from our facilitators. And we hope for more collaborations even in future. And we are going to share the presentation or any other useful information through our email. So maybe Madam Pauline, you can please for us.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. This point, I think I'll just thank you very much, and of course also my colleagues here. I would appreciate. I would like to thank you so much for being here with us, staying here up to the end. Of course, even Kenya School of Government. This was an event that is organized by the Danida, the Kenya's Danida Alumni Network. But of course, with the partnership of Kenya School of Government. And of course, we would like to thank the school so much for the support. Just to what has been experienced, those are some of the challenges that we have to deal with as far as embracing technology and especially online events. And I would like to say my sincere apologies for what has happened. It was not our wish that it happened so. Next time we will work to put a lot of controls as much as possible. So apologies sincerely once again, and don't be deterred by that. In future, should we call upon you to attend and also participate in these events, because I believe that the gains that you've had over or above what we have the challenges that we have gone through. So in future, we shall still call for more events, and we shall still call for more workshops, and even that forum for us to exchange knowledge and ideas and even influence policies that affect our life, day-to-day lives. Thank you very much. And I think at this point, we close with the word of prayer, which I will still proceed on to pray. Maybe we just bow down for the word of prayer. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we thank you for the free gift of life that you have granted unto us. We thank you for the privileges and the opportunities that you have given us to run this event successfully, and we have been able to learn out of this. All the information and the knowledge that we have been able to share, help us so that we can give us the courage and also the wisdom to implement them in our respective places of work and also daily life. We ask this trusting and in Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Thank you very much, and of course you are now free to leave to your own. You're free to leave us now. Thank you very much.